right. So today we're here with a young lad named Yash. And this guy, how old are you now? 17?
17. Yep.
You're an old guy now because when I met you at an event. Seventh Level was receiving this big award down in Orlando with a company called ClickFunnels in September. And I ran into it and you're like, hey, I'm a client, I'm 16 years old. I'm like, how he's 16? Like, how is he a client? Like, can we even have 16-year-olds buy products from us? Like, is that even legal? I didn't even know what was going on. I thought you were like literally like joking me. I mean, you looked young, but I was like, there's no way this kid's 16. And you're like, tell me like, yeah, I've been in sales for like a couple of years. I'm still going to school and I'm making like 10, 12 grand a month at the time. And I'm like, dude, here's a 16-year-old kid. I'm thinking about like, what was Jeremy Minor doing when he was 16? And I'm like, I definitely was not making 12 grand a month when I was 16. I think I was making like minimum wage, working on the weekends while I was in high school, like trying to figure out, just anything, like how to tie my shoes in the morning. And here's this kid that's 16 years old that's making 10 to 12 grand a month. Now you make even more than that. You've matured. You're 17 years old now. But today we're going to really go over and break down your sales process that we've taught you, because I think it's quite remarkable because, when I met you in September, because usually in the Facebook group, for us to interview a client in the Facebook group, we typically say, hey, you need to be making at least 25 grand a month in commissions. Usually around that 25, 30 grand a month in commissions. And you're like, man, I cannot have you interview me in the group until I'm making 25, 30 grand a month in commissions. I'm like, you know what? Let's interview this guy. He's 16 years old. He's already making 12 grand a month in commissions. Like, that is remarkable, because at your age, making that amount of money, here in a couple years, that's going to be more. In a couple years from that, it's going to be more, because you're going to learn more skills. You're going to get more knowledge, right? And you're going to be able to sell more. So it's quite remarkable. So we're going to interview Yash today. We're going to break down his sales process. He's going to give you he's going to drop some bombs, as my good friend Bradley would always say. He's going to drop some bombs with you guys. And we're going to give you some questions that we've taught Yash, because he's one of our clients, actually. Okay. He was in our, I think, NEPQ 3.0 corporate. I think you were in our advanced inner circle there for a while as well. You're in our advanced inner circle. And I'm just like, wow, this kid is like crazy. So I'm Jeremy Minor. I'm the founder and chairman of Seventh Level. Okay. Now we're a company, we're a sales training organization that trains salespeople exactly like you watching me today. Okay. So we train sales professionals like you. We train coaches like you. We train sales executives like you, sales management like you. Maybe you're a sales manager or VP. We train entrepreneurs, business owners, and we help you and your teams transform the way you sell by learning specific skilled questions and techniques that work with human behavior. Now, Yash is going to talk to you a little bit about what that means today, okay? You're going to have a 17-year-old train you how to sell more today, okay? This guy is probably making more money than a lot of you on here watching. Now, is it because he has a really cool mustache? Is it because he has a really cool gray sweatshirt on right now? Or is it because he's learned the right skills that work with human behavior? And maybe, just maybe, you watching him today have not learned these skills yet. And that's why he is like kicking your ASS. And I'm very proud to say that. So well done, all right? So those are called neuro-emotional persuasion questions. So we teach you the right tonality that puts your prospects at ease. Yash is going to talk about the difference in that, because he used to sell a different way, okay? Where the prospect wants to open up to you, wants to engage with you. It takes a sales pressure out of the conversations, and it gets your prospect to persuade themselves. So Yash, walk us through here. It's very unique for a 16-year-old. You just turned 17 a while ago, okay?
Yeah.
Very unique for a 16-year-old to make 10, 12, 15 grand a month in commissions. You make more now that you've turned 17 from 6 months ago. When did you first get into sales? Like, what's the background of your story?
Yeah, so I got into sales like, I think I was 7, 8. Like I went to one of those, I think back in the day, I feel old saying this, but back in the day during those marketing events, right? Like go to the back of the room, it's 10,000, right? So $10,000 to buy XYZ product. So I went to one of those events. It was because we were going to go to Disneyland right after, right? So
how old were you?
8, 9.
You were 8 or 9 years old. So I'm assuming your parents took you to some event, or did you just magically walk in as a 9-year-old?
Yeah, so it was my mom, right? My mom's really like, my mom's a big part of kind of why I got into sales, right? She's a big part of how I got into this. And so she had a mentor, right? And she's like, you know what, let's go there. We'll go to Disneyland right after. I just want you to check it out, right? Because I was doing like garage sales and things like that, right? And I was selling like door-to-door lemonade. So not door-to-door products like you did, but lemonade. So a little bit lower. And so we went to the event, right? And it was a really good event. Like the guy, everybody's in suits. I'm in my suit, right? I had like a bowl haircut, right? It was, I mean, like it was crazy when I look back at that picture. And so at the end of the event, the guy's like, run to the back of the room. And I was like, I just wanted to see. That was like, you know, we all have that point in life where it's like, you realize like, this is what you want to do. That was the point where you have like 300 people running to the back of the room, paying this guy 10, 15 grand. I'm like, and I'm counting the heads right at the back. I'm like, that's 10, that's 20, that's 30. Like this guy made over 300, 400 grand in a single day. I was like, I got to figure out how to do that. Yeah. Right. And so so I invested in this program, right? Took a loan from my parents. I was like, I want to do this. I want to learn what this guy teaches. Right. Okay. So that's where it started. I started stage closing, right? Did some stage closing events.
So as a 9-year-old,
yeah,
you had your mind because somebody like you were sold as a 9-year-old at this event that your mom took you to, so you could go to Disneyland.
Yeah.
And you got so sold, you're like, Mom, I want a loan so I can learn how to sell from stage. That is quite interesting.
Yeah. So I started doing like stage events, right? Started doing a few stage events, right? Some went really well, some didn't go as well, right? Got a bunch of no's, got a bunch of yeses. So stage closing is where I started. Then I got into like kind of phone call closing, right? Because then stage closing went down, right? You can't go every week to a new event to sell stuff, right? It doesn't work like that. So then I got into phone call closing. And so then I used to go to like marketing events nearby, try to sell packages, like coaching packages.
How old were you when you were trying to sell packages on the phone?
13, 14.
Okay, so help me understand. Like you have school. Like, did you skip school? Like how?
No, so I still went to school, right? Like school was still a thing that I had to go to. Like, but we used to go to marketing events on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right?
Okay, so on the weekends you would sell.
Yeah, exactly. And so I used to go to those events. Right? I didn't care too much about who's the speaker. I was like, okay, I need to connect with individuals here, and then I need to get them to buy my package. At that time, it was like funnel designing. That's what I was doing. I was selling funnel design packages, and I was like, I got to sell it. So I went to a few marketing events, sold $1,000, $300 packages, right? Sold 5 or 6 of those. And then I was like, you know what? I'm tired of selling $1,200. I need to start selling high ticket. Like I have enough faith that I know I can sell myself to it and convince people to like buy that. And back then it was product pushing. There was no NEPQ.
Okay. So yeah, how did you learn how to sell? Like you said, you were a product pusher. So you were making some sales. You weren't like selling tons. You weren't making like multiple 6 figures a year like you do now. How did you sell before you learned how to really sell?
I guess 2 things, right? The first thing is when I went to the events, I found the person I knew I could crack. I was like, who's the person in the room right now that's going to be an easy sale that if I build enough rapport with them, you know, they'll be like, okay, let's do it. All right. Okay. So I target those people, get their number, schedule a Zoom call with them, connect on FB. And then I just product push and I was good. Right. Because I built enough rapport with them. I knew those were easy sales. I didn't know how to make the hard ones with people who were skeptical, right? People who needed that credibility. Yeah. And so then I opened up a coaching business with one of my used to be business partners, right? We scaled that up, you know, and that was the same thing, right? Just finding the easy targets we could get, selling them into it, right? Doing cold.
Crazy. So 14, 15-year-old kid, I'm going to start my own coaching business. Great. You know, great for your mom teaching you how to even think that way. Yeah. And then you got a sales job. And how did you find us here at 7th Level? How did you get into like the advanced inner circle? Like walk us through that.
So that's interesting. I was in like, I met Marco and Matt right before I knew you. And so I found out there's a guy named Marco, very thick accent. They call him the Italian Stallion. And he's
if everybody understands. So in case you're new to the Facebook group, Marco is our chief revenue officer of the company now. Okay. A couple years ago, he was one of our top students ever. He made $1 million a year in commissions as a salesperson working for a company. And we saw how successful he was after we trained him, that we then eventually brought him in as the chief revenue officer about a year ago. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So everybody's talking about this guy named Mark. I was like, dude, who is this guy? Like, I need to see what this guy's doing. And funny enough, he was selling an offer that was targeting the same market I was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to book a call with him. Let me see. Let me act like I'm a prospect. Let me see how he would actually sell me. So I BS myself through the triage, right? I'm making 100 grand a month, right? Just go through it because I want to talk to the main guy. Because I knew if I said like 10 or 20 grand, he'd put me on with one of the other closers, but I wanted to talk to him specifically. Okay. And so I hop on with Marco, and Marco's like, don't I know you from somewhere? Like, I think I know you. And I was like, dude, I'll be honest with you. I just want to see how you sell. Like, I don't want to waste your time and be that guy. And he's like, no, I'll show you exactly how I do. So he showed me a little bit of how to use it. It was making sense because back then I didn't really have a process, right? It was more old style selling, just like product pushing, a little bit about their numbers.
Yeah.
So he showed me how he sold, and he was like, listen, I want you to join NEPQ Inner Circle. Like, this is what you're going to need, right? Okay. And back then it was a big decision because it's like, I was only making like $3,000 in commission back then.
Okay. So back in those days, I mean, still it was a 15-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid, making $3,000 a month in commissions while you're going to freaking high school is still not bad. Yeah. So what caused you in your mind to think like, hey, I need to take this skill level that I'm starting to learn and really advance that so I can make a lot more money?
Yeah, I think there were two things, right? I think the first thing is like, I didn't want to stay at $3,000, right? I just knew that there's obviously a better way to do it. I don't know that way without a doubt, but there's definitely people out there that are doing better and greater. Right. But I also knew like the hours I was working, because when I was working at that other company, right, I was working like 15, 16 hours a day, nonstop, DMing, triages, sales calls. Right. I just never.
Where was school at, man? Like what?
Well, it was online back in the day. So I used to put it on my phone, put the phone down, mute the phone, and then be on my computer working, doing calls and trying to figure out what I could do.
Okay. So this was like during COVID. So you had online school. So you're like, oh, this works out to my advantage. I'll put my teacher on Zoom, I'll put it on mute and I'll just work the whole time.
Exactly. Right. So, but I realized I was like, this is no way to work, right? Like, I know there are people out there making a lot more that are not working 15, 16 hours a day. Like, it's not the way to do it, right? So I just knew it was like, I didn't want to stay where I was. So I have to do something. And
okay. So you got into our Advanced Inner Circle program. Okay. You started learning how to disarm your prospects, a lot more than that, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about like, once you started learning like the right connecting questions to ask and the right situation questions that we taught you to ask and the right problem awareness and solution awareness, how did your prospects start to react to you compared to how you used to sell when you were 15?
I feel like a big thing is just becoming that trusted advisor, right? Where it's like you're coming into that call, not I'm trying to sell you something, not I'm just a rep. I'm level-headed with you. We're two individuals here to help you, but it's not like I'm any lower than you or I'm trying to push my product onto you, right? Connecting in situation, like put everything aside, but connecting in situation questions alone put me in a position where in the first 5 minutes of that chat, like I'm actually here to help you. You know that. And like you have to take this conversation seriously. Yeah. Right. And especially in the market I was selling in, which was coaches and that type of space, right? Because they're checking out products all day long, right? New programs. It's like the difference between you and other companies is your sales. So
really. It's there's a lot of, in your industry that you're selling in, it's a dime a dozen. It's like any industry. There's 1,000 different, you sell health employee benefits. There's 1 billion companies that sell that. You sell cars, 1 billion car dealerships. You sell insurance, billions of companies that do that. You sell coaching, billions of competitors. Every industry has tons of competitors, right? But especially yours, because people are buying courses all day long. The only thing that separates you from them is really your sales ability, right?
Exactly, right? So I was able to put myself in a position where it's like even follow-ups, first call closes, people took it seriously. People were ready to go, right? They understood with my questions that, hey, like this guy cares. Like he actually wants to know more about it. The tonality was hitting, right? And so that was the reason why calls back then were still taking a while, like 45 minutes to an hour. Right now, they're only 25, 30 minutes. But back then it was still taking a good amount of time, but I was at least able to get them on. Where now they're open to the discussion and I'm able to at least put myself in a position.
Yeah. So instead of like how you were taught how to sell before, like so many salespeople are taught the what I call the ABCs of closing. Always be closing. It's that mantra, always be closing. The Glengarry Glen Gross film, like coffee's for closers, put that coffee for down. So what we taught you is how to make selling collaborative instead of adversarial. Okay. You want to be a top salesperson in 2022, you have to learn the ABDs of selling. That stands for always be disarming. So from the first part of that conversation to the middle part of that, to the end of that sales conversation or any part of your sales process, you continually have to learn how to ask the right questions that continually disarm the prospect that triggers them to want to engage and to want to open up to you. Otherwise, you're triggering sales resistance by using the mantra of always be closing. So if you want to be a top sales professional in 2022, you got to always be disarming. Keep going.
Yeah. So that's where I started off, right? And so then within the first 3 to 4 months, right? And I remember I was paying Marco through PayPal because I needed a payment plan, obviously. So I was doing it through PayPal. That's how, that's where it started, right? And so worked with you, right? Jumped on the calls, voxed you. I still remember voxing you, right? And all the things we went through there about the script and everything. And so within 3 to 4 months, I went from being, I think, the second to lowest closer in that company all the way up to the highest, right? I was doing triple the amount that everybody else was doing. I was doing about $12,000 in commissions, about 120, something like that, cash
So
collected.
let me ask you, how did it feel to kick the ass, excuse my language, Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn? How did it feel to kick people's asses that were 2 to 3 times older than you? That could have been 25 to 35 to 45 to 50. How did that feel?
Good. It was good because it was like, you learned the right skills, right? Like now all the work that was being put in felt like, okay, it's worth it. Like we're actually doing the amount we deserve. Like I'm able to do the things you need to do, right? Because as salespeople, it's like sometimes we're not able to do what we want with our families and everything, right? But I was finally in a position where it's like, hey, all this time, all this energy we're putting in is worth it because I've actually learned the skills that need to be learned.
Yeah. I mean, what are you, junior in high school now?
Yep, that's right, a junior.
Junior in high school, making 15 grand a month, sometimes more per month in commissions. That's like 180 grand a year. I couldn't imagine making that amount of money when I was 17 in high school. I've been like, I would have like the coolest car, driving around the square, cruising the streets. I would have been the coolest guy in the school, man. I love that. All right. So let's give everybody some tactical training. Okay. So before you learn connecting questions, when you first started, because you sell, I think what you sell, some type of training program that teaches people how to invest in cryptocurrencies,
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
So if somebody wants to learn how to invest in cryptocurrency like Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of those type of programs, I think you're the company you work for teaches them how to trade that or how to invest that the right way and diversify or something. It's kind of like a whole new big thing. Okay. So you kind of solve those problems for those type of people that are looking to invest in that type of stuff. Now, let's talk about connecting question. Like what's one connecting question we've taught you? And I remember you came to one of our events that we had here in Scottsdale, I think back in November. So we're talking about 4 months ago, where we kind of had like an event with about 50 of you in there, inner circle members. And I remember like we had everybody role play and do different things like that. What was your biggest takeaway from like having me live in person compared to just like on a training like this? What did you learn?
Yeah, I think a big thing that I learned is NEPQ is so powerful. Sometimes we take it for granted.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the questions are formed in such a way where even if you're monotonous with them, you'll still be able to get the outcome you want. Right, you'll still be able to get the questions, but the way to step that up to the next level is with the tonality, right? So I realized when I saw you in person is like you take this to you take it to another level of just your tonality, the way you're confused every time, even though you've said these same sentences over a million times. So when I saw that, like I realized I was like, okay, there's a whole nother level of acting and like scripting we need to do here to make the second nation.
Well, that's how you go from 15 grand a month to 30 grand a month. That's how you go from 30 grand a month to 45 grand a month. That's how you go to 45 grand a month and higher in commissions with whatever you sell, right? I've trained salespeople that sell exactly what your type of selling you make that make 50 grand a month. Now, they're older than you and you're eventually going to get there. So I think your skill level is amazing compared to where you're at. I don't know any other 17-year-old that makes 15 grand a month in commissions. I know zero. Okay, zero. All right. So well done. What's one connecting question that we've taught you that has really, because there's different connecting questions that we teach you how to ask, but I'm not going to have you give away the farm. But what's one good connecting question that we taught you how to ask that really triggers the prospect to open up to you?
Do you know what type of help you're looking for? That is the best question you ever taught me. Like just straight ask.
Yeah. So there's a couple of different connecting questions you're asking before that, right? You're not just getting on saying, do you know what but then one of the connecting questions that we try to ask is simply like, do you know what you're looking for? Right. So it's like, it's the way you're asking it. If you just said, do you know what you're looking for? It's going to get a different response than if I slow that down. See the tonality here. Everybody watch. Okay. And do you know what you're looking for? See that curiosity there at the very end? I'm emphasizing for. Okay. Do you know what you're looking for? Okay. All right. Now let's talk about situation questions. Okay. How do we help them find out what their current situation actually is? And how does that help you find out what their current situation is? How did you used to try to do that in the past before NEPQ?
Just break down their numbers, right? So it wasn't like, because the do you know what you're looking for is such a good thing because it actually tells you why are they here, right? Yeah. What do they need help with? Because you can sell any type of product. There's always multiple reasons why somebody's reaching out to you, right? For crypto, diversification, more money.
Well, and for you, like, do you know what you're looking for only works for inbound and outbound leads that have requested information or booked on your calendar. If you're cold calling, you wouldn't say, do you know what you're looking for in the first, minute of a cold call? That wouldn't make any sense. It'd be tweaked differently. Okay, keep going.
So that question used to help me because it actually gave me like, okay, what do you actually like? What is it that you feel like you need, right? And then going into situation, it was a lot easier. Back in the day, it was like, awesome to meet you, man. Let's dive into your business, man. Let's figure out what you need help with, where we can help, where do you need to go, right? It was the typical thing. And then the issue with that is that's why your sales calls go on for an hour 30, because now you spend time breaking their numbers, right? You go into the nitty gritty of like, okay, man, like what do you currently do for X? You see, I'm still using NEPQ while I'm saying it. No, but something else, right? Back in the day where it was like, you're diving into their numbers and irrelevant things that make your sales calls longer, give them more reasons.
Make them longer, make them far more logical, which we know is, we know from behavioral science, human psychology, that people do not make buying decisions based on logic. They only buy based on emotion. I don't care if it's a Wall Street investor looking to invest $100 million. That decision is going to come down to emotion. Now, they'll justify with logic, but it'll come down to an emotional decision 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's talk about problem awareness questions, because problem awareness questions are very powerful, because here's where we've helped them. Once you learn NEPQ, you help them see what their current situation is. We call that their current state. You can see me here. Now, we also, in our solution awareness questions, are going to help them see what their future is going to look like. We call that their objective state. Some would call that their future state. Okay. Now, what's the gap in between all of these problems that our advanced questioning has allowed them to see they have, that before that conversation, they didn't really know they had? You have to understand that most of your prospects, when you first start talking to them, don't even realize they have a problem. Or maybe they realize they have a problem, but they don't know how bad that problem is. Or maybe they don't understand what the consequences are if they don't do anything about solving their problem. Now, once you learn NEPQ and you learn advanced questioning, not only are you able to help them find one problem, but as you know, Ash, you're able to help them find 2 problems, or maybe 3 or 4 or 5 other problems that they didn't realize they had, which triggers them to automatically view you as the expert, as the trusted authority that's going to get them the results they want, period. So let's talk about problem awareness questions, okay? What's a good problem awareness question that we taught you to ask that triggers them to realize they even have problems in the first place?
I think the first one, do you like what you currently do for X? Like that problem awareness question really helps because it gets them to think, right? And especially when you have the right tonality, you're actually thinking about it, right? You look up, right? You think about it, it gets them to be like, do I like it? Like, is that something that's in place that I want, right? It's like you are inflicting doubt to an extent in their process without you doing anything. And the good thing is it's not in a way that's offensive saying, well, man, is that even that good? Like, you only have X, Y, Z, right? That's what most people would do, right? Like, oh, I don't think that's that good. Or do you really like that? But it's like when you have the right tonality and you're disarming them by saying like, yeah, man, and you having X, Y, Z in place for this long, do you like X in place now?
Yeah. So in your case, you're selling like investment advice. So you can say, okay, so you've been investing with this current process that you've had in place for the last 5 years. Do you like the results you've been getting? See how I had that verbal pause there. So you've been investing like with what you sell. Now for every industry, we're going to tweak that somewhat. Okay. We teach all of that in our virtual training courses, how to tweak that. Okay. So you've been investing with this current system or process you've had in place now for the last 3 years. Do you like the results you've been getting? See how I calmly say that at the very end? I have that break. Okay. It's called a verbal pause. All right. Let me give you guys an example of this. Like if you've ever heard politicians speak, politicians that move you the most are the ones that are able to engage your emotions, your emotional state. And a lot of that is done by them saying something or asking a question and they pause. And it triggers your brain to think very deeply about what they just said and what they asked. Well, I'm not a political person. I'm right down the middle. But one president that did very well with doing that was President Obama. If you heard him speak, he engaged his audiences, okay, by really having verbal pauses. That is not something you're born with. That's something you learn how to do, okay? What's in your mind, what's the power of a verbal pause that you've seen that we taught you how to do?
I think 2 things. First, it gets the prospect to feel like, okay, he's actually thinking about it. He or she is not just, because when you sound too smooth, a lot of people want to come in the whole smooth thing, right, with smooth hair and everything. It doesn't help because everybody knows it's scripted and they feel like, okay, this person's been through it before. Like this person is just trying to sell me something. Exactly. So I think the first thing is it helps you with seeming like you're genuine. But the second thing is those verbal pauses make the prospect think about every word you're about to say and everything you've said so far.
Yeah, it pulls them in. Okay. If I said that same question, that same problem awareness question in this tone, so you've been using that type of investing system for the past 5 years. Do you like the results you've been getting? Yeah, I really like them. It's a knee-jerk question by the way you delivered it, and you're going to get a knee-jerk reaction because they're not really going to think deeply about what you asked. But if I slowed it down and said, okay, you've been investing with that firm for the past 5 years. Do you like the results you've been getting? Now that triggers deep thoughts. See the difference there? All right. Solution awareness questions. Let's talk about that. What's one good solution awareness question that we've taught you that triggers the prospect to really think about what their future is going to look like once all of their problems are solved by you?
Yeah. So the big thing that changed the game for me that I feel like really got my close rate up, right, was especially the question of, okay, so you being able to get to a point where you are making that $500,000, because how far did you say you are from making that now?
Creating the gap.
Yeah. And then it's such a tiny tweak, right? But as soon as you put that in, well, man, I'm only 50% there. Okay. So you being able to double your income, right? Because you're looking to go from 250 to 500, like you doubling your income. What is that going to allow you to do? Yeah. Being able to do that, right? So
so with what you're selling, because they're investors, I would be able to invest in this. I'd be able to take my grandkids on a vacation. I'd be able to pay for their college, right? So all logical based things, and then you're going to follow up with what?
And so you being able to take those vacations and do those things, like what is that? What is that going to do for you personally?
Yeah,
being able to do those,
being able to do those things rather than just want to do them, because those are two separate things. What would that do for you personally? See that?
Every time you do it, it's like Vincent Van Gogh. It's crazy. It's like
you're learning, brother. You're learning, man. See that verbal pause. What would that do for you personally? See that verbal pause, verbal freaking pauses. You learn NEPQ, you learn verbal pauses like we teach in our virtual training centers. You will crush any industry that you ever fall into. I don't care what you sell, you'll be the top salesperson within 60 days, sometimes sooner. All right. Presentations, we don't have time to go into that. Okay. Taught you the 3-step structure. Since we taught you how to really have a good presentation with like tying in what they said compared to like the 3-step structure of, one of the biggest problems that people have when they come to us is XYZ, which causes them to ABC, the consequence. So the way we solve that for our clients is, and then you go through the specific parts of how you solve that. And then at the end of that, and what that means to you is, and then you go over the advantages and benefits of what it's going to do for them. Since we've taught you how to do that in your presentations, what have you noticed?
2 things. I feel like the prospect actually feels like they want it. Like they actually are in a position where it's like, because you ask the ideal criteria, right? They actually feel that, hey, this is matching up with what I need. This is not just an average program or an average XYZ thing that everybody has. This has been specified for me, right? Because people are not going to buy something. People don't like buying things that are for generalists, right? They want a specialized thing custom made for them.
Yeah.
Right? And so having that in place makes them feel that way, right? Yeah. But it also gives me, because it's like when you get into objections and all that other stuff, like the first thing is, do they want it, right? I mean, are they even going to benefit from having XYZ product? And with the presentation phase like that we went over, right, when I was in Inner Circle and Vox Q1, like I got the buy-in that they wanted because they actually feel like this is right for them. So that handling the objections, the follow-ups, all that becomes a whole lot easier when you actually know that they want the product.
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't get as many objections. Probably eliminate your objections by at least 50 to 60%, sometimes even more. And then if you do get an objection because they have so much trust in you based on your questioning ability, they're so easy to overcome because I feel like you're working with them, collaborating with them to help them overcome it, right? Rather than just fight them and like try to push them into doing it. They're the ones pushing you to let them do it. They're throwing money at you. What's one good commitment question we've taught you to ask to get them to commit to take the next step?
So for me, the commitment question I like to use a lot is like, so possibly time to make a change then, right? Mm-hmm. Or are you ready to start learning the skills you need to learn
Yeah.
So you are able to get to that $500,000 mark and do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. So you're repeating back what they said they wanted so they can get the end result that they said they wanted, right? You're aligning them purchasing what you're offering with getting what they said they wanted. If they can get the money together to get the product or service, they get what they want. If they can't get the money together, they don't get what they said they wanted. And it's very hard.
I think one thing that I think is like the most powerful thing that changed my game, just in the sense of commitment, was before the commitment, the questions of like, do you believe having XYZ can get you from where you are to where you want to go? Yeah, but why though? And then having to elaborate on why they believe it's going to get you, because then your commitment question is easy. And then going in for the close where it's like, okay, man, like we've covered what you're looking for, is so much easier, because not only have you clarified that they want it, you let them speak for the next 30 seconds explaining every single reason of why they want to do this.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I can't thank you for being on here. It's impressive. You're 17-year-old. You're still in high school. You got into our Advanced Inner Circle program. You're now making $15,000 plus a month in commissions as a high school student. A lot of these people on here watching you because they haven't learned the right skills yet. You are totally kicking their ass in commissions. And they're probably 2 to 3 times older than you are. You know, the average person in your industry, I looked it up, makes less than $5,000 a month in commissions. You're making 3 times that amount and you're 17 years old. It's the right skills. It's not necessarily the industry, right? All right. Any last words of advice, Yash, before we get off here?
No, I mean, the last thing I'll say is just get into NEPQ. Like, it was a game changer for me. Changed not only the quality of my life, but the direction. And once you learn these skills, it doesn't matter what offer you're on, what industry you're on, what marketing you're on.
Yeah.
So,
but yes, tell me this. Why should they get into NEPQ now and learn those advanced skills rather than pushing it down the road like unsuccessful salespeople would?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can, if you don't want to get to where you want to go, right? If it's not as important, like it just comes down to, if you don't have the skills and you're not where you want to be, what are you going to do about it? All right. And if you want to change that, go to somebody who's one of the best, who knows what they're doing. All right. If I go to a man whose name is Jeremy, that's made over 33 million in straight commissions, cold calling, generating half of his leads, there's something he knows that I don't. And
Possibly.
Possibly.
Yash, you're a legend in the making. You're a savage right now. You're getting up there to legendary material. You know, I'm very particular about who I call legend. You have to make a certain amount to be a legend. You're in the savage field, but you're 17 freaking years old. You keep on the trajectory you're going right now, you're going to be a legend very, very shortly, within the next couple of years, maybe even sooner. So keep learning those skills. We love you, man. We appreciate you to have you on here.
I appreciate you as well, Jeremy. Thank you.
All right. Thanks everybody. Hey guys, if you enjoyed these, here's another you can watch right over here. Join our free Sales Revolution group. Click the link below, join us, and we're going to help you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you real soon.